What can we do as speakers to make it easier for our listeners to decode our speech? Well, based on what we know now about how we process speech, the answer is pretty straightforward. We need to provide cues. So in this video, we're going to talk about two really important cues to help listeners: context and prosody. Context. Why does context matter so much? Well, as we've seen, your brain as a listener is trying to narrow down all the possible range of words and meanings to make it easier and faster to process new content. Our brains are very efficient in this way, but when context is missing, your brain might slow down, especially when confronted with unexpected words or different ideas. So in public speaking, we want to give audiences contextual cues. What am I talking about? Why am I talking about it? And what am I going to be talking about next? Previewing your key points, providing transition and reviews, all these things are important to speaking. They repeatedly reinforce the context. In writing, if you're confused, you can always just flip back a few pages, but that's not an option when you're listening to a speaker live. Prosody. The sound of language provides essential cues to interpretation. Prosody makes up the various characteristics of speech, so stuff like pitch and rate, pauses, stress, and so forth. These prosodic features provide an ongoing stream of hints to a listener about how to efficiently process the language. So, for example, we don't just hear a string of words. As a listener, we break them up into functional units. So this is different than that. When ideas and phrases are hard to distinguish from one another, the speaking is more challenging to listen to. So take a look at this waveform. You can see where pitch and pauses are occurring. Okay, look at the pitch and pauses in this phrase. I didn't like the movie's ending, but what did you think? Right? There's lots of peaks and valleys that break up the language. There's changing intonation signaling a question. Now look at what monotone looks like. I didn't like the movie's ending, but what do you think? Okay, not a lot of variation. Okay, sort of really emphasizing it there, but people think of monotone speakers as boring. Well, such talk is more than just boring. It's harder to process. Monotone speech is harder to process. Now, we're talking about milliseconds here, but listening to a monotone speaker requires you to work harder to figure out their meaning. Speaking too fast, listener is getting cognitive overload trying to process everything that you're saying. Plus, the prosodic cues probably aren't as strong. Long, convoluted sentence, well, the listener's trying to sort out exactly what you mean, but they gotta wait a long time until you reach that really relevant word. Most of what we call good delivery is really just delivery that's easy for the audience to process. Now, there's certainly other things that goes into good delivery, but there's a reason why monotone sounds bad. There's a reason why too many pauses or pauses in the wrong place sound bad, and it's not purely an artistic reason. As speakers, we operate in the medium of sound. We should strive to speak in a way that's easy and pleasant for the audience to understand. Providing contextual and prosodic cues sounds good because it's what listeners of language need.